You're listening to the Earth Xperience podcast.
My name is Eloheem Ali. I am the philosopher of order. And as far as, who I am, I would just say that I am someone trying to guide humanity to FAMS. I mean, I'm a guide. If I really had to sum it all up, I'm also an author. Um, you know, what is it, 4-time best-selling author on Amazon. And, I like to do speaking engagements. I like to teach. I've been a teacher for years. I'm a musician. I do a bunch of things, but my main focus is just using the philosophy of order to hopefully guide humanity toward something called FAMS, food, forest, foraging, hunting, anti-fragile modern society. This has always been who I was. So when one of my earliest memories is me at my great grandmother's house, looking out of a window, and I felt like I'm like 4, 3. I got to be like 3 or 4, and I'm trying to remember something that I forgot. And I always say it was my purpose, but I remember I knew I didn't have the words for it, but it was like my purpose. But it was like a dream that you had, and you're like, I'm trying to remember it, and you can't really hold on to it. The reason why that's so important is because through my life, I've always had this default of thought, awareness, thinking about things, approaching things, and it never really changed, but it made up who I was. So I was raised Christian. Okay. Um, I was raised up in a mega church, big church, big deal, cameras going around. But I never could really believe in God the way that everybody around me wanted us to believe. Now, I didn't say that to anybody, but that's just something I knew since I was like 5 or 6. Like, I don't exist in the same kind of thought that everybody else has. I say that to say that thing that was like I was trying to remember, eventually it was given to me. That's what the philosophy of order is. It's something that was given to me to fulfill. It is my life's work. It's what I am here to ultimately do. And it kind of just makes up everything that I do today. So I don't know if that was a sufficient answer, but
there's no right or wrong answer. Just come off thing to be you. Whatever comes, it's a lot of improv because I'm just going to pull from each experience. But
I love it.
what I hear is that you were raised Christian and that you didn't express it to anyone else, but you knew that something was different or off. And maybe I'm switching your words around a little bit. Do you know, or can you identify what started to reveal itself, even though you didn't express it to anyone else? What were the things that were standing out? Like, do you have any stories or any examples of like what made it not something that you were aligned to?
That's a good question. So this is kind of where it gets hard because there was no event that made it not
Mm-hmm.
align. It was just so I'll get really deep into myself. So I saw things. I try not to tell people too much because it
Oh,
freaks
please
people
do.
out,
Please do.
right? Freaks people out. So I grew up seeing that was a default of mine. I saw spirits in the way that people would see people. Like that was just a default experience. I didn't really know anything else. I didn't even know other people didn't see it until I was trying to show my mom, and she said she didn't see anything, which then became a scary thing for me because now I feel like, oh, I'm alone. So y'all don't see all this all this stuff, okay? And it kind of those kind of experiences kind of was my default. So a lot of things that people experience later in life, you know, awful dreams, lucid dreams, astral projection, seeing things, that was just the way I came into the world. I didn't earn those things. I didn't work for those things. I didn't meditate for those things. I didn't pray for those things. It was just the way my default setting was. And in actuality, I spent most of my years praying that I wouldn't be like that, praying that I could think like everybody else and see like everybody else. And when you grow up in a Christian household, as mine was, I can't speak for everybody else. My mother never necessarily did this, but this was the feel around the family, which was if you're seeing things, then you're seeing demons. So I was constantly afraid of being taken to hell. If I'm being honest with you, at the time, as a child, up until I was probably about 12 years old, I believed in hell more than heaven. I certainly believed in demons more than angels and the devil more than God, because I was told the things that I'm experiencing are those, and that's what I'm seeing, right? And so, and so that's one. That's that right there. And then the other part is that my brain just did not and does not function like a lot of my peers did. And this is something else that I would come to recognize as I got older. Like, for example, at about, I don't know what grade, how old you are in second, third grade, I was thinking in my mind in second grade, like they were doing the math, you know, and I remember thinking like they did a joke. It's like a 7, 8, 9 or something like that, that
Yeah, I
old
remember
joke.
that one.
And I was like, 7, 8. Why was six afraid of 7? And then I'm like, where is 6? So that got stuck in my brain. So I asked the question. I asked my teacher, where is 6 located? And she's like, I'm like, second grade. She's like, what? What do you mean? I'm like, where is 6? Like, is 6 in Japan? Is 6 in China? Now they thought I was being silly. I was really trying to get to the bottom of what is 6, where is 6, and how is 6. Like these kind of answers. And I was put in the corner for that. Later on in life, right? And so I didn't like math, but later on in life, I was watching Discovery Channel, Geography Channel. I was into all that, catching animals. I was into all nature, all of that. And then they said something in one of the shows I was watching. They were saying that time is space. But then when I went to church in Bible study, somebody said that God was outside of time. I was thinking about this for so long. This bothered me. I'm like 12, maybe 11, that I went home and I cried about it because I was trying. How could God be outside of time if time and space are one, and God's outside of space? And for years I thought about that. I didn't get an answer until I was a philosophy major, and I was lucid dreaming, and I was experimenting with dreams, and then I finally found the answer. So I hope that helps answer the question.
Oh, it does. Oh my goodness. And there's so many, I have to like train my mind to not confuse you now because there's so many different places that I want to go. I want to dig into a little bit more. I appreciate the fact that you shared that you had those visions and dreams when you were younger, and that's always been a part of you, and that people are nervous about hearing those type of conversations because I I'll be a little bit transparent. I've never had those experiences when I was younger. I had people around me who were able to, you know, see colors, they were psychic, and I was the type of person where it's like if you believe it and you see it, I believe you. I just haven't had that experience. And I never thought that I would until I did. And then I was like, this shifted me so much because it showed me that your belief systems are based off of your experiences. So if I never had the experience of being able to see, other spirits,
Right.
I could easily say I don't believe in it. But then once you experience it, it's like, oh, it existed, but it didn't exist for me yet. So now everything that people believe in is up for questioning, is up for investigating, because you don't know if it's actually true or not if they're having that experience. So I want to talk about it if you're okay with it.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about what that looked like for you, how it felt. Was it scary? When did it become, something that you just owned? Or I imagine when you were saying like you always thought it was a part of your experience, but then you have people outside showing you that they have different experiences, like what that all meant to you. But the reason why I want to focus on this, because I don't want us to be nervous about these conversations. I
Right.
think that's the point, is a lot of people aren't sharing that they have these experiences. So there are other people who feel alone and they
Right.
feel odd because they're like, no one else is talking about it. It's not that it's not happening. It's just that it's happening to certain people, and if everybody came to the circle and said, "Hey, raise my hand, me too," then it's
Right.
like, so we can talk about it and we can talk through it. And the
Right.
other thing is the importance of it is when you were talking about the the faith lens from your family, they saw it as demonic, so that was their belief system. And so there's probably someone else also listening to it and thinking like, is something wrong with me, instead
Right.
of exploring it. So let's start there.
Okay.
What did it look like? What are you experiencing? You also mentioned lucid dreams. So I'm trying to figure out, is that coupled with that? Can you just talk about the entire experience as much as you can?
Okay. So, first, because you made me think about it, there certainly are people who think that it's weird. So, first, I'm going to give something that I teach everybody in the philosophy of order, my students, everything. So, there's something called, if anybody studies somebody's called, his name is Donald Hoffman. He studies consciousness. And what they came to find out is that everything that you're like seeing in reality, we're having an interface. Like, well, the way I should say it is, you're seeing icons. So you think you're seeing the way something truly is, but you're really seeing an icon. It's like when you see a when you get your computer and you see that trash can in the corner of your screen. Obviously, there's not a trash can there. It is an icon to communicate to the user that if you put something here, then it's going to eventually disappear. Now, there's code behind that, but our brains are not made to read code, so the designer gives us an icon. In that same way, reality doesn't really look the way we think it looks. It doesn't look anything like that. We are just, our brains are made to render it into an icon so that we can better understand it. This is why that famous picture of that dress, everybody's, is it blue or is it white, right? Or women see higher in the color spectrum than we do, or other creatures see in sonic and things of that nature. These are all icons that we are evolved to render. And the way that we know this is because there's people in the world, when they hear music, they see symbols, and they'll all see the same symbols and colors coming out of that music. I forget the official terminology, but they're all seeing that music. But it's not that the music isn't there. They're not hallucinating. This is how we are trained to perceive reality. They're not hallucinating. They are seeing music, but they're seeing music rendered as a symbol. That's how their brain is processing the music. And so when people are seeing a spirit, they're actually seeing something. It's an essence, it's a collection of attributes that make something what it is. It's an entity. But most people's brains is like, I can't see music. I can't see music. I hear music. But there's people who can. And in that same way, most people cannot see, let's say, the spirit of, let's say they walk into a house and the house has this terrible feeling, as if something really awful happened in it, right? So that feeling is an icon, by the way, but you just feel it. Some people's brains will render that feeling into an actual entity, a symbol that tells them what has happened in that house, like something of that nature. And in that way, I just want to tell people who are watching, it's not that you're crazy. Your brain is rendering a symbol just as it does all the time with everything else. But for you, you can render things that are normally seen as immaterial, like what we will call a spirit. So I wanted to say that first. I don't know if you want to me go further now or go to the next. Oh,
Yeah. Go wherever you want,
okay.
wherever feels right.
So now that I've got that out the way, as a kid, I didn't know any of that. So I'm just experiencing life. And so what I was seeing, many different things, orbs. When at my youngest, that was like the
Mhm.
thing, was the orbs up near the ceiling. Shadow people in my teenage years, what people call shadow people. They're the most consistent in my life. Entities that look like, uh, you know, I wouldn't, entities that look like, beings, guardians are hard to describe in your corner. I have never seen anything besides my grandfather. Very, about a couple years ago, who passed. Uh, Outside, I've never seen a human. Uh, Most of my experiences, they're not humans. I've seen light beings, two light beings having a conversation as I was sleeping, which absolutely terrified me. So, just to tell you, all these experiences for me were terrifying. None of them, up until I was a teenager, was comforting. None of them were something that I wanted. It was just the way things were, it's the way that I had to just accept the world around me for being. It wasn't until I got older that I kind of reached a state that I didn't really care. It's not like they didn't do anything to me.
Mm-hmm.
So I got to a point where I was just like, doesn't really matter. I see shadow people here. I'm just like, that's not really a big deal. And then it wasn't until I matured, probably about 21, 23, when I got more into meditation, when I got more into long prayer, stuff like that, until I could just decide if I want to see them or not. So most times I'm just not seeing because I don't want to. But if I wanted to, I could, but I choose not to because I have no reason. And so that's normally the way I live. In regards of my dreams, growing up, I had very awful nightmares for probably my entire childhood. Um, pretty really, like, not bad nightmares like normal bad nightmares like, entities, I don't know, creatures, things of that nature. And it wasn't until I was about, again, you're going to hear 12 a lot, around 12 years old, that he became my imaginary friend. I was having this awful, terrible, reoccurring nightmare. And all of a sudden, I was flying. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I look up, and it is this blue, friendly looking creature. And it carries me to this amazing dream. And every time I had nightmares up until I was about 16 years old, it would pick me up and carry me away to an adventurous, amazing dream. And so that's how the nightmares stopped.
Oh, that's interesting. So, have you ever heard of sleep paralysis?
Yeah, that's most of my life.
Because this is why I think this conversation is important, because when you talk about it, I guess, in the everyday world, in life, with the typical people, if you hear some of this, it's tagged with sleep paralysis, but you don't go any deeper than, the REM sleep stage. No one really connects it to the spiritual realm. And not too long ago, I had a guest on the podcast, and she studied sleep paralysis through the spiritual lenses, and it was from a Christian lens, but it was the first thing that made me understand that, oh, the other people experience this. But it's like, when you're still you, and this experience that's happening is like, I don't know how to describe it. It's not like you're crazy,
Right.
but it makes you feel crazy because you don't know who to talk to about it. And sleep paralysis is the closest thing that you get to. But I'm interested in, if you took away any spiritual lenses, even though you weren't really connected to Christianity, what did you make of it only being bad experiences? Like, did you think it was demonic because that's what implanted in your head? And did you later on, like, recognize it to be something different, even though you were taught something else?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't think any of it was demonic. I don't think that any of it was like terrible. I think that it's a kid who, like, you got to be careful what you say to kids. So if I'm seeing things and you tell me that they're demons from hell, I mean, you have just completely changed. We talk about something in philosophy of order called spells. So I don't use spells in traditional sense. Or in a spiritual sense, because I think they used the wrong definition. It's about spelling words and things like that nature. But if you look up the etymology of spell and the way that we normally mean it, to put somebody under a trance or something like that, like magical, it actually comes from the Old English word spell. Actually, is where the word gospel comes from. So spell actually meant story or narrative or command. So gospel was the good news, the good story, right? And so spell was to put. So if you put somebody under a spell, you put a story in their subconscious mind. And when a story runs in your subconscious mind, that means you don't know that it's running, but it's determining the way that you look at things. So if somebody comes to me and I'm seeing things and they say these are all demons, right? Right. And I'm a kid. Kids are in a state of like hypnosis until they're like 7, right? So it's going to go into my subconscious mind. And now every time I see an entity that doesn't look human, the others can't see demon, right? Hell, right? Like, like that's going to shape my experiences. And then my nightmares will be a reflection of the way I feel about my everyday life. And so, though I was experiencing all this, you wouldn't know. As a kid, I was a very happy-go-lucky kid, super adventurous, running around everywhere. Running around everywhere. People perception of me was fearless. And I guess of regular things I was. Like I caught rattlesnakes and not rattlesnakes, copperheads and water moccasins and tarantulas. But when at nighttime, I was very frightened and I was very scared of the dark and of things of being left alone and things of that nature, because I was afraid of what I was going to see by myself and what I was going to dream about because of what I'm seeing by myself. But no, today, I look at it a completely different lens. I actually think that people who have uh, entities coming to them, I think you should take everything seriously. I think that, you shouldn't assume anything. Just like if a person comes up to you, you shouldn't make the assumption that the person is good nor evil, right? You should also assume that everybody has their own intent and their own reason for coming to you. Because I've had so many experiences, what we call spirits. I look at them like I look at people. When a person comes up to me, I don't know that person. I don't know what their intent is. I don't know them. And until they, do something, I don't even have an idea of the intent. So I never assume good or bad intent if I do see a spirit, but I do assume that if a spirit is coming to you, then you're actually in the position of power, right? You didn't go to the spirit. The spirit came to you. So the spirit's coming to you and it needs something from you. There's really no reason to be afraid because you're in the power position here, right? If it's trying to get your attention, if it's calling on your name or it's showing up in places or whatever, it is clearly trying to get your attention. If it could get somebody downstairs attention, it would go and get that person downstairs attention. If it could take whatever it wanted from you, then it wouldn't get your attention in order to do so. And a lot of these interactions, you actually, just like with people, you give power to, somebody else. If I'm in an encounter with, I used to train dogs. If I'm in an encounter with a dog and the dog is trying to intimidate me and I back away, I've now given the power to the dog. If the dog tries to intimidate me and I'm like, bro, I'm not bothered, the dog's now confused because it's lost a position that it was trying to, get in this interaction. And so I tell a lot of people, if you are forced into an interaction with a spirit, right, or whatever it is, right? Let's say you don't know what it is, but you're having this interaction, then I would say the best thing is to have no fear and to ask questions, or to straight up ignore. You do not have to acknowledge. I tell people this about regular people. If somebody hits you up, you don't have to be best friends with them. You don't have to entertain them if you feel like they don't have good intent. You don't have to invite that person into your life. You don't have to talk to them. And so these are things I would tell my younger self if I could. And that's just the way I handle it today. And so the less you give to somebody, whether it be a spirit entity or a physical entity, the more you're in the position to do what you want. But if you give things like fear to it, then I mean, now it's in a position of power because now you're afraid. Why are you afraid? Because it looks unappealing. So question yourself and question it is the way I look at it now, looking back on it.
That's good. I think there's a case for why people who grow up in religious spaces will say these things are demonic and maybe carry that message out. One, maybe they haven't had the experience, but two, it feels like you are in a vulnerable position. And it's like some of the teachings around this is that somehow, some way, you open the door for this entity to come and mess with your world. And sometimes I think that that could be a truth. What you just mentioned about the questioning and going through this fear is also has another storyline. And my theory is that it makes you braver in this world, because when you realize that there's this other spiritual experience that you can have and you're in contact with it, one, it makes me more intentional about what I think and what I do in the physical world. And two, once I was able to question, right? Because I had a moment like that where I don't know, I don't know what to call them. They look creepy, and I guess it realized that I could see it and thought that I could not see it. And what do you want?
Good question.
Yeah. And then they were like, "You could see me? You could see me?" And I started laughing because I was just like, wait, like I thought that they had more power than they did. That's why I started laughing. Then the other part, and this is where I connect the spiritual space in, is because when I was going through this, and this was on short lived, I did not intentionally call on the name of Jesus. It was like I feel like I don't know. I'm only tagging it to my grandmother because everything about my faith life is connected to my grandmother. But it would just be these old songs that I remember from being raised in a church. And at the point of the song that the name Jesus came in, they would all like disappear. Like they would all just go and vanish. And I was like, dang, it's power in his name of Jesus, right? And I didn't really say it. I wish I could explain this well, because it doesn't feel like it's me. Like I don't feel like I went in and found this old church hymn. It just like came a part of the experience, and I just was like witnessing the part where Jesus' name came in, and then seeing everything like kind of like spread, go like they would leave or whatever. But for me, it was like some of the cases where it was like I could just see them and it would be like really weird dreams. Others, it's like the whole sleep paralysis where you're like, I can't talk, thinking that I can talk but I can't, and it's like Jesus, and then it's like it goes away.
Can I hit on? There's 3 things you said I wanted to hit on. Do you mind?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Let me try not to forget these. I wanted to hit on your experience with the Spirit. I wanted to hit on your experience of calling upon Jesus, and I wanted to hit on your experience about sleep paralysis, which I keep forgetting to hit on. So, number one, it's funny that you say that because what I teach my students is that like so a spirit, one, is a collection of attributes that makes it what it is. You have a spirit. So it's that thing that makes you across all time. It can't be your brain. Your brain's different than when you were born, right? It can't be your memories. You don't have the same memories you had when you were young. And if you lost all your memories today, we wouldn't take all your belongings, right? It can't be your body. Your body's different. It's going to be different by the time that you pass away. So it's not anything physical, but it is a collection of metaphysical attributes that make you, that makes Dani Dani. And so, in fact, I always argue a parent can always see those collection of attributes, no matter what happens to you. If you get overweight, if you lose weight, whoever raised you, whoever saw you in your rawest form can look at you and say, that's Dani. Like, I know that's Dani. So, there's a collection of attributes it's a spiritual thing. Okay. So you are seeing an entity spirit with no physicality, just a spirit, and your brain rendered it and created a representation of it. Now the symbol of it is important. If it's creepy, there's a reason why, in my opinion, your brain is rendering it as something that's creepy. Normally, creepy means be cautious. Might not be dangerous, but be a little cautious, right? So maybe that was what, I don't know why your brain was seeing that signal, but maybe that was it. The funny part is what I tell everybody, and I forgot to say this, is don't if they don't talk to you, I always say don't talk to them, because people talk about open and closing doors. So we have something called like civilizational spirits and pre-civilizational spirits. Any civilizational spirit needs attention in order to grow in power, right? It needs attention, whether it be prayer, worship, or sight or vision. And so in religions, they call this opening the door to something, because you're giving attention to it. And so what I learned in my experience was, if I see a spirit, I don't always gotta say something, right? Because sometimes they don't even know. That's why I thought about it. They don't even know that I can see them. And most of the time, the vast majority of time, when people tell me about these encounters, I'm like, it's funny because you don't know it, but you invited this experience because you initiated the experience. And from your perspective, like, no, I didn't, because you're looking at it from the perspective. Like, most people are looking at it from the perspective of it just showed up to me. And I'm like, maybe it didn't show up to you. Maybe you just saw it. And People see it all. People walk by it all the time. But you acknowledged it. You gave it attention. And now it's like I am going to get more of this attention. And so, I always that's why you hear from me now. I'm like, you don't gotta acknowledge these things. Like, you don't gotta talk to them. You don't gotta speak with them, And so I thought that was really important. And then you said something really important when it comes into calling the name of Jesus. So I have a very unique, and if you want, we can get into that, but I have a very unique perspective on, Christ, Yahweh, Elyon, Buddha, all these different entities. But, I often say this, that spirits are real. So the spirit of Christ is real, right? And, they had this experiment with the placebo effect, right? And what they did was, and this is important, because the way that we perceive these things is that these things are fake, but these aren't fake. So they've had this whole placebo effect thing, and they use
before you go on, when you say they, who had the experience? Do you know?
Oh, it was, I think it was Harvard that did but I mean, many different universities did the experiment. But I believe the one I'm talking about is Harvard. If it was not Harvard, then I don't know. But what happened was they they were just seeing how far does this placebo effect thing go. We know for a fact that I can give somebody a sugar pill, and if they believe in me, then they will be cured of their headache. Right? I mean, they don't say it this way, but this is really what's happening. So it's a belief thing, right? But they tested it. They had different symbols, different companies, and they had off-brand companies people never seen before. And then they found out that the company that's most trusted had the best effect. Not a big surprise. But then they started doing symbols that they'd never seen before. They have different bottles with symbols that people have never seen. But one symbol would always do better than another symbol. And I thought that was very interesting, because that would mean that a symbol in itself has more power of belief than another symbol. So this is deep, because when we look at different religions, different deities, different spirits, there is some sort of hierarchy when it comes to what we call miracles. There's a hierarchy going here, right? You're probably going to get the most miracles. No offense to anybody watching. I have no religion, but you're going to probably get the most miracles in Christian related religions. And then the second is actually normally Buddhism. Then it's like Islam and Hinduism. So, but I don't think that's because of the religion. I think it's because of the spirit in question. So there is something about the spirit of Christ, just like there's something about the spirit of Buddha, that if you look it up, for some reason, the spirit of Christ, the spirit of Buddha, and the spirit of Mary, for some reason, those three spirits get the most miracles. They get the most cure out of prayers. Mm-hmm. These are studies. They get the most sightings, group sightings. These are the three in the world right now that get the most of these things. And so we don't know that the belief, in my opinion, my humble opinion, is actually something that you have. But not everybody, some people have the power of belief in a way that others don't. So there's like different levels to this. So if you look at somebody like a Christ or a Buddha, these are people, in my opinion, who did not need, well, let's work the other way around. We'll work up to Buddha and Christ. So you have people who need a God, a deity, a person sometimes. Could even be their mother. But they need someone to affirm them in order to access power that they have, right? That power of belief. So for some people, it's their doctor, right? You could have healed your headache on your own, but you needed the doctor to give you a sugar pill and say that, hey, this is going to heal you. So your belief in that doctor allowed you to heal yourself. And then some people, they need, and literally, they can do anything through the strength of their God. And they're not playing about that. They're very serious. I mean, they can lift a car. They've done experiments. I mean, they can heal people through it, literally through a belief in a God. And then there's some people, they use totems. They say, as long as I'm holding this stick, right? And they believe it. As long as I'm holding this stick, then I have the power of X, Y, Z. And then you have people, in my opinion, people like Christ, like Buddha, who literally, not to talk for another day, but who literally have the ability to say, no, I can do it myself. Like they're not holding a totem, they're not holding a symbol. They're not using someone else. They say, no, I can do this for you. And then they'll say, and which you'll find both Christ and Buddha saying, they'll say things like, as long as you have faith in me, I can heal you. Right? So I believe, but do you believe? And so it gets really, really interesting. And then the last thing, and then I'll let you go, is sleep paralysis. Is that I actually found out I had sleep paralysis. That was the worst of it for me. Worse than a nightmare was sleep paralysis. And I didn't even know that nobody can hear me until my cousin told me. I woke up and I said, BJ, you didn't hear me calling you? I was suffocated. I could barely breathe. I was calling on you. He said, what? I said, no. I don't. Your eyes were closed. You were asleep. I said, no. I saw you get up and you walked out the door, and I was calling you and I was screaming, wake me up, and you didn't help me. He said, I'm telling you, from what I could see, your eyes were closed. You were asleep. And it wasn't until I got much older, college, that I found out that actually that I actually could take that and I could astral project. So I could project myself out, and then I started going on adventures and all that other kinds of things. So I just wanted to comment on those three things because they were so good. I know that was a lot.
I just love it so much. So thank you for sharing that. I want to talk about that sleep paralysis just a little bit more, because the other part of it is you mentioned astral projection. I don't know too much about this. I have some idea about it, but it does make me nervous. So I'm interested in what your take on is. One of them being that their consciousness and take advantage of them. And this other part of like the sleep paralysis, or like even the dreams and things like that, is it seems like entities are taking advantage of people. And like you mentioned, is it they invited it or not? Like, is it of their will? Sometimes I feel like it's not of your will. When I say it's taken advantage of, I think they actually have some names for this, for these like two different types of entities. One is like succubus, and I can't remember the other one. But I'm just interested with whatever I just said. Is there anything that you would pull on? One, but the astral projection, and then that taken advantage of in dreams. Like, have you had those type of experiences where people are doing things to you that you don't want to be done to you, or did you like it?
Yeah, I've had all kinds of experiences with that. Yes to all the above, except for liking it. So man, there's so much in it. So one, I want to tell everybody watching this that I put astral projection now, not in the past. I used to just play around with all these things when I was younger, but you should take them all very seriously. I put it in the same bag as like, opening your third eye. Most people say they don't even know what it means. If you study the Buddhist text and what they say about the third eye is, if you don't have a certain level of protection, they say, or a spiritual know-how or consciousness, then you can lose your mind. And they also talk about you can be possessed by, and these aren't Christians saying this. This is a whole other culture talking about that you could be haunted and by spirits that you don't have comprehension for. And so I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I do think people should come into these things with a certain level of seriousness, because not everybody's the same. What I learned is I used to go around telling everybody to ask for that and do this and do that, but I have been going through this stuff since I was before I could remember. So we're not going to even have the same experience. What scares me, what scares you doesn't scare me, right? So like I'm more used to certain things. So I'm very careful when I talk about astral projection. So I did do a lot of astral projection, and I did a lot for fun. When I did it, it was more of a conquering thing. This is a time in my life where I was conquering past fears and things that I couldn't control about my spirituality. And one of those was sleep paralysis. So I went there having fun. I mean, I've done things. I've flown. I've gone through walls. I've flown above, my house. I've flown up to see how the Earth looks like from outer space. I mean, I've done, and they're different from dreams. They're not the same. And one can go to somebody else's dream. This was just me fooling around. I don't actually think anybody should do any of these kind of things, but I went to one of my close friends, Sham. I went to his dream, and he was like in front of a laptop. He's asleep. He's just like most people when they're asleep, they look sleep in their dreams, just like zombies. And I went up to him because he asked me to do this. By the way, everybody, he asked me to do this. He said, "Come, like, come wake him up in his dream." So I went to do that, but he had this giant entity. I mean, you could call it a guardian angel. It didn't look like an angel, but it was this giant, magnificent entity. And I knew immediately that I wasn't allowed to be there. So I ran, and it chased me until I left the Sham's dream. So he didn't remember that. So you could make an argument that I made all of that up in my head. But this was my experience astral projecting, and you know, I've gone to people's dreams. I've tried to bail them out of nightmares. I've done all sorts of things. I've gone. My friend Kamal didn't believe that I was astral projecting, so I went while I was sleeping. I went and I looked at something, and I came back and I told him what it was that I looked at. I think it was some wiring. So I told him I can't read, so you'll have a hard time reading things in astral. Everything looks slightly different, for me at least. And so, but I can tell you certain things, and so I did. It's like, whoa, right? So it is very real. Um, so I was having so much fun that I was actually grounded, and I don't know what grounded me. I remember trying to astral project, and I was like, all right, another day, and I tried to leave my bedroom, and I could not leave my bedroom. I could not phase through walls like normal, which is crucial because it's not like you can open doors or anything. It's not that kind of experience. Now, the other myth with astral projection is that, like, if you project outward, then your body's an empty vessel and something can hop into it. It's a projection. People say, like, if you get, killed in the astral realm, all that stuff's not true. Trust me, I've done pretty crazy things in the astral, in the lucid dream realm. Um, but I do very much think that people should be cautious of what you do. I went around, and maybe it was an ancestor or guardian angel, whatever, deciding that, maybe it's not time for me to do things like that because I wasn't allowed to leave anymore. I literally could not leave, and I tried for weeks, and I just stopped. I haven't asked to this day. I haven't astral projected. So that's my experience with astral projection.
I'm glad you shared this because one of the things that I noticed is that it does seem like there's some rules, like some spiritual rules that are a part of this experience. And I would be so interested to know even the belief systems of Sam that had that guardian angel that was, say you can't come here. Like, I imagine that those who have these belief systems that you went through earlier and they really believe in it will have a guardian angel protecting them from those type of situations. And in my experience, this is what I didn't really know what it was. I'm like, someone keeps coming into my dream and I'm not inviting them. But one of the lessons I learned from with the other entities, and you mentioned this earlier too, is like when I realized that I can have that question and that Jesus, the name Jesus, just like had just put them away. I ignored it. Now I don't have them anymore. And even though some cases where like someone would try to astral project into my dream, it's like I know that they're there. I don't give them any
Right.
attention. And it doesn't have as much weight and fear as it did when it first started, which ultimately makes me feel more powerful.
Yeah.
In this action of like, hey, do that in the real world. And I'm saying the real world lightly, but do that in your everyday life because this is showing you the impact. And I just know that one of the things you mentioned that you were like positive and go lucky, that no one would know it. I was like, I am so like that. I imagined that my task was to make sure that I took that seriously, that my words matter. I can, like, when we're talking about rules, like it's like almost I have to be intentional about my words. I have to be mindful about my words because I could feel what that feels like in the spiritual realm, and it's intense, even though you feel like it's just like, oh, like I don't like any bickering or the children and go back and forth. Like that's like a big deal to me. And some people are like, oh, they don't children. Like no, like for me, it's so serious because I can feel in the spiritual, and even that was like even before having all this. It's like it's just very important to me, you know.
100%.
And I didn't understand why it was so important, but now it's like when you're able to zoom in and see it on the other side, it's like, oh yeah, I literally cannot do it at all in my mind and my belief system. I guess I'm conjuring up. Like I just cannot be as negative as the next person next to me.
That's awesome.
It's going to be have an impact on me
Right.
and you know.
Right. I wanted to say about the dreams is that, I don't do it as much anymore. I do it here and there, but you can do exercises that make sure that you're conscious or lucid in your dreams. And because when you're lucid in your dreams, you're way more powerful. So you could kick somebody right out. When I used to lucid dream, anyone or anybody who was present who I didn't want to be, I mean, I got so good at it I could do pretty much anything. But they're kicked out. And so being aware in your dreams is something that spiritual people used to practice in the ancient world. It's starting to pick up again now, but mostly we just do it for fun. Like I did it just for fun. But I think everybody should. And all the only things you have to do every day, and you'll just start naturally having lucid dreams. When you wake up in the morning, write your dreams down. Start backwards because you probably forgot the beginning. Two, randomly during your day, ask yourself, what is your name? Because you have a hard time remembering your name in your dreams. Number three, look at your hands. For whatever reasons, your hand has a hard time recreating. I mean, your dreams have a hard time recreating your hands. And play with light levels. Walk into a room, switch on, switch off. Your dreams have a hard time going on and off with light levels. So if you just do those things every day, you'll end up just accidentally doing it in your dream. And you're like, whoa, hold on a second. And then you'll be dreaming. And then you can just practice doing whatever you want in your dreams.
I'm glad that you started to go this route because as we're talking, and even with that placebo effect, I'm not sure what is true belief or what's not, if it's just based off of what we believe in and the power of believing. So there are people who might listen to this experience, and again, the way that these experiences are cultivated is that you're just thinking through your own belief systems. We're listening to one another to hear like what's out there, but also it's either to strengthen yours or to question your belief
Right.
systems if that's the case. But in this world of astral projection, sleep paralysis, the spiritual world, you mentioned that there's certain levels of protection that you would have to have. Would you consider the things that you just mentioned part of that toolkit for making sure that you're protected, or are there other things that you learned in your experience to have a high level of protection
Yeah.
when it relates to this subject?
To me, your highest levels of protection are always going to be two things: your belief and your awareness. Like, and here in the physical world and there in the abstract world, like, those are the two things that are going to be most. So, having something you truly believe in, it could be you, it could be God, it could be the ancestors, but having something you truly, really believe in is just so crucial. But it becomes even more crucial in metaphysical places, for whatever reason, like, just like in lucid, like in your dreams. Like I had a dream last night, everything was going fine until I saw somebody in my dream who looked like a character from Walking Dead. And then all of a sudden there's like zombies, and I'm like, oh, I messed this up. I'm a bit more lucid than people, so I'm like, oh, I messed up, I'm just gonna wake up. But but like, so in the dream world and the metaphysical world, these things just matter more. How you think, thought process, belief, awareness, they just matter so much more there because it's all so moldable and fragile by your beliefs and your awareness. But yeah, being aware that you're dreaming, not only is it important to protect yourself in your dreams, because people think of, we have a weird mindset with dreams. So our default is that dreams aren't real. One, I disagree. The second default is that, oh, I don't remember my dream, so it doesn't matter. Wrong, right? Just because you don't remember something that was traumatic in your life, it doesn't mean it doesn't affect you. That's not how it actually works. And so some people wake up and they're angry. They don't even know why, because you don't remember what happened. You had a whole experience and you don't even remember it. You just remember how you feel because, you might wake up from a dream, but, like sometimes you had a happy dream. Like, I don't know why, man. I'm just no good, like, because you don't remember, but you had an experience. And so being aware of your dream in some capacity is very important. But then also being aware with the kind of person you are. So some people, you might have heard this, some people cannot conjure images nor sound in their minds. I don't know, you might be one of these people. So there's a spectrum, right? And so there's people who have thoughts, but their thoughts do not come as words in their mind or pictures or images. And then you have people on the other side, these are the minorities in the spectrum of humanity, on the other side who can literally play movies and songs with the instruments and sounds in their head and have conversations in their mind. And then most people are in the middle. They see like things in black and white in their minds. They hear something like a voice. Maybe it sounds like them when they have self-thoughts. And so, but that's important to understand as well. Because when you wake up from a dream, you can't, some people are like, I can't remember it, but that's because they can't conjure an image of it. And so for them, it's better to try to remember how it felt and what was happening in that regard, and maybe to draw it or to write it out.
I had a dream last night I had to write out, and I remembered most of it, and I can even interpret what I was getting from the dream. And I've had that several times where it's like, I know exactly what that dream meant. And it's interesting because I didn't trust myself early on when I started to have it. I would just having dreams and I would just like, I wonder why I had that. And I would just go find it out. But like later on, it was just like, oh, I know exactly what that means.
Right.
And it's mostly personal. But in the beginning, I would be getting dreams of people I haven't talked to in years. Like, I don't even know if they remember me at all. Like,
Right.
I remember a lot of people. I'll think about people like that I knew growing up. And I sometimes, I think about them because like I just dreamed about something that was amazing that happened to them. And I'm like, I don't want to be one of those people like, I had a dream about you, you know? And I tried it one time because it was like one felt like I think I was supposed to say something to her. I have no idea. Like,
that's funny.
But what is your thoughts on like when you have your dreams and you write them down? Like, are you interpreting them because you believe that they're true? When it's something that's crazy happening, what's the truth behind that? Like, do you take that and believe that crazy thing is happening because it is in the physical world in some place in your life? Like, because some people say don't believe in your dreams when you have like the dreams like, oh, somebody in my family died. I mean, like, you don't want to believe in it because dreams aren't true. Like, I can see why people tag onto that. Your belief is that they're real.
Right.
How do you reconcile when you have one of those real dreams that you don't want to be true? Like, you just take it as it is, or do you interpret it for something else?
Right. So by real, I guess what I mean is that they go on when you're not there. So just because you leave a dream doesn't mean it goes away. This is what I tell people. So there's two kinds of dreams that I think people have. When I used to be a dream explorer, that's what I used to call myself, a dream astronaut, And I found two different worlds for dreams. There's my dreams, and then there's three worlds, right? There's my dreams, there's other dreams, and then there's like a ecosystem, like where it just all exists. So it's like everybody creates their own world, but there's still a whole universe out there to explore in between those worlds. And so one, I always have to know which one am I experiencing. So when I'm experiencing my world, the world that I created, that means when I'm seeing something that's very negative, that's a part of myself, whether it's my higher self, whether it's my child self, whatever version of me is communicating something. So I tell you, when you're having a reoccurring bad dream, there is something being communicated to you and you're not receiving it. It could be an ancestor talking to you because, going into, spirits and such, just because somebody passes, their collection of attributes is still with you, especially if it makes up literally who you are and you think about them. And so they might be trying to tell you something. Sometimes, but sometimes you're not in your own dream. So when you are in your own dream, you have to understand it could be your ancestors, it could be you, it could be somebody who you created in your dreams, one of your creations, trying to communicate to you. So it is your job, like you were doing, to interpret and try to figure out, okay, what is being said here? There is something being said. What is being said, even if it's negative, if it's awful, still try to figure out what is being said. So I knew when that happened last night, that I was like, well, that's what you get for watching Walking Dead for all those years, right? Because I tell people now, I know I sound, I used to hate it so my cousin had a super religious mother, not in a positive way though. They're super religious in a positive way and they're super religious in a not so positive way. And no offense to her, but she wasn't. But I actually agree with some of the things that she had said back then. She used to say, Emmanuel, and that was her son, my cousin, he's not allowed to watch those things because those things have spirits.
Mm.
And I used to be like, well, I still disagree about the thing that she said that he couldn't watch with me at the time. I think it was like Digimon or Pokemon. But I actually agree with her generally, like that things. So again, a spirit is a collection of attributes that make something what it is. So I tell people all the time, because we're talking about dreams right now. When you go to a horror movie, you do understand that that is a collection of attributes or a spirit that existed in somebody's dream. And spirits, what they often want, good or bad, they want to spread. Like, for example, I told you about the good spirit or dream character, Blue, that helped me out and carried me to another place. And so now Blue gets to exist in other people's minds. And that's same, but that's a positive thing, right? Somebody who saves you from your nightmares. What a positive thing. But there's also the other end of that. Some people have awful, terrible experiences in nightmares, and they write it down to get it out. It's not. I'm not saying all these writers are trying to hurt you, but they're getting it out, and people are having to go, man, that's a really good scary story. And then it becomes a movie, and you go watch it. Now you have something that was terrifying in their mind, and you have it in millions of people's minds, and they're making posters, drawings, comics. I mean, it's everywhere. So now that spirit has spread out, and now it haunts many people. What is a haunting? It doesn't have to be literally something throwing things in your homes. It's following you. So now when you go home, you leave the movie theater, you turn out the lights, all of a sudden you're thinking about this thing. Now you're turning the lights on, which means you're giving it power because you believe in it in some sense. Now you're giving it some of your belief power. You're like, I need to go check the house. It could be somewhere in my backyard. You know it's nonsense, but the power of belief is pretty powerful. The movie was good enough to convince you that in some way that this entity is dangerous to you. And that is belief, by the way. Fear is belief. And that's what we were kind of hitting on earlier, like giving something fear is a version of giving something belief. And so now it runs a part of you. So I put all that, and so you have those nightmares, all those in that broadness of dreams. So something that could be communicated to you was simply don't watch that stuff. I said all that to say, like sometimes you're having a dream about something horrifying because you keep watching it. You keep going and watching these things and looking at it, and your mind or a version of yourself is telling you, we don't want it in here. We don't want it. We don't want it here. It's in here, and when you leave, it's still here. That's what I mean by dreams are real. You leave, it's still up in your mind doing things in this dream world, and you think it's over because you've opened your eyes when it's really still running automatically in your subconscious mind. So,
Oh, that's real. And I want people to lean into that. I'm not sure if people are leaning into it, but lean into it a little bit more because I imagine that there might be some clearing that you can do in order to not have those experiences where it's going to couple very well with the beliefs and the Christian belief system of like guarding your eyes and your ears. And I've challenged myself with that because I didn't want fear to be my belief system. I challenged myself with guarding my eyes and my ears just to see if it was fear that was overriding. But then it became senseless. Like, I don't have to go on this journey of like figure out how brave I am. Like, if I really want a clear mind, if I really want to experience liberty, happiness, that's the content that I want to
right.
explore. But through that journey, the reason I started this journey, and it's going to start to shift where I'm like talking to people about love and everything, is because I think before you get there, you want to have some type of journey of understanding what the other side is like, so that you just aware, like you mentioned, like the awareness, oh, that you do exist. Because sometimes with the language of positive thinking, it's like you think so positive that you don't ever think that anything is bad, and that's not true. It's just I'm aware of it. I'm just choosing the route that is beneficial to not only myself but the people I interact with. Because if I am intentional about like choosing the good or being mindful of these things, even though I'm aware that there's a route for the worst, I don't know. I don't. What do I get out of the worst experience? And maybe someone can make an argument that all these bad things, the worst things, is going to help me elevate. Not me. That's not my ministry. It's not something I'm interested in. What do you believe in? Like, do you believe in God? Do you? I know you say you don't practice any religion, but do you believe in God?
Yeah, I'm all about God. Like I don't even like saying believe. I know God.
Okay.
But I'm not saying it in like the weird sense of people are like, I know God. I don't believe in anything. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that my entire life I've been obsessed with God. I don't really do anything else. I'm like a nerd when it comes to like, this is why I can tell you about probably gods of different religions. This is the stuff that I was studying across me trying to understand God. And so, because of that, my perspective of God is going to be extremely different for the same reason that, like, if somebody's you have one person who likes dogs, and then you have somebody who's like really into dogs. And so, I always tell people who believe in God, I'm like, hey, we're not probably going to believe it in the same way because I'm obsessed about this. Like, I'm really into this. So, in the same way that somebody might like have a dog, like, man, I like dogs, and you meet somebody like, man, I don't know if I like dogs as much as he like dogs. It's kind of weird. And so, no, so yeah, I have a completely different perspective on God in general. I mean, we can get into it, but yeah, I have a completely different perspective on God. So, right off the bat, I had to write a thesis my last year in college about God. I was a philosophy and religion major. And my thesis was there's no point in arguing about God because we can never truly know who God is, only what God is. I'm going to lead with this because it's going to help with a lot of the other frameworks that I've built and understood through time. So, let's say that we are talking about my mother, right? And we're arguing about my mom. My stepfather says that my mom is his wife, and my grandmother says my mom is her daughter, and my auntie says my mom is her sister. We're all arguing. I'm like, no, she's Perinda is mom. No, Perinda is daughter. Perinda is. So what's happening here is that we all have our own relationships with my mother. And there's no point of arguing who has the correct relationship with my mother because my mother is actually more than all those relationships. My mother is more than a mom. She's more than a daughter. She's more than a sister. She's more than a wife. She is something beyond that. It's actually very hard to comprehend what a person truly is. And so I've always argued if that's the case for one individual person, imagine how that would be when it comes to God, right? The ultimate. Well, the way I perceive God is the ultimate. So everybody doesn't have that same perspective. So, but even if we go a little further into that, so I'm not saying that somebody's relationship with God is wrong. I'm saying when you therefore go and take your relationship and then you compare it to someone else's and then say, therefore, yours is wrong because yours is not matching mine, there's a ludicrousy in that because we're talking about something so overwhelmingly awesome, great, and beyond that really you should stay in your own personal lane. So I have my own personal relationship with God. For example, I don't ask God for anything. I only thank God for things. I don't ask for anything. I haven't asked God for something in many, many, many years. But I do thank. I do give constant thanks. I also, when people talk about God, I often ask them, and they say, normally I didn't. I knew what you meant, so I didn't do that this time. But normally, when somebody asks me, do I believe in God? I say, which God? Because the reality is, when I say God and you say God, often when we don't mean the same thing. In fact, we might not, right? So, you know, um, somebody might say God and they mean Yahweh. Somebody might say God and they mean Brahman. Somebody might say God and they mean Krishna. I mean, I could name so many. And Zeus, maybe somebody might really, Atum Re, Amun. So we could go on and on and on. So I'm like, well, which God are you talking about? Because we might not be talking about the same God. And so one, I think God is existence itself. So most people call that pantheism, but it's not exactly pantheism because I take it a step further. And when you say the most high, what are we talking about here? Well, if we break it down like this, if you're saying that God is the ultimate, then nothing can be beyond God. Nothing can be before God. God is all powerful. Like, if we're going to make all these claims, which people have throughout all human history, then we have to ask, what is that? It would have to be existence itself. This is my argument. Because what is beyond existence? If you say God, well, then I have to say, well, God exists. So then that is a part of existence, being itself. You kind of get into this in other philosophies, ancient spiritualities, but even some forms of mystic Christianity, mystic Judaism, mystic Islam also gets into this nature. But then if we take it a step further, we use terms like the most high. Like we say that, the most high. And I was like, well, what do you mean by that? The highest thing in all of existence. I'm like, cool, okay, great. So the highest manifestation of existence itself is the most high. I agree, right? But then we have to ask, what is the highest existence, right? And maybe we can't comprehend. Maybe whatever you think the highest thing in existence is, it's actually something to be up and beyond that, because you can't possibly comprehend it. So when I talk about God, that's what I'm talking about. I'm either talking about existence or the most high. And so from that, I extrapolate exactly terminology, like when we say God creates everything. I believe that more literally than anybody you probably would ever meet. I don't believe it in a figurative sense. I don't believe that in a kind of maybe sense. I truly believe that the Most High literally creates everything. Even this conversation that we're having right now, I would say that that is being created by the Most High. So it gets pretty crazy in that direction. The other direction is that I don't discount other people's gods. So I don't tell people that your God doesn't exist. I never do that. I say, I bet your God does exist. I don't worship that God, but that's fine. You can have your own God and you can worship, as long, what I say is, as long as it's helping you in your life and is bringing you order, then I'm fine with it. I do not advocate for anybody worshiping anything that brings destruction, chaos, and illness to mine or anybody else's life. I'm not, I don't advocate for that. But other than that, if you want to worship the sun, I don't care. I mean, that's fine. I don't have any problem with that. And so the reason why I don't discount that gods are real, it used to be scriptural when I was just coming out of Christianity, but I don't use that anymore. It's more so for the reason that, if, again, we're defining a spirit is a collection of attributes that make something what it is. All throughout history, when we're calling something a God, we're saying that this spirit is the sovereign of this domain. In other words, is the most powerful thing in this domain. If we're saying it's the God of the forest, we're saying that in this forest, this spirit is the highest thing. And we're saying it's the God of the earth, we're saying, like, that's what we're saying. And then beyond that, obviously existence, we're saying God is the God of existence itself, right? The most high. And so, I don't doubt the existence of any entity of that nature. I just only worship and praise the most high.
This is really good because when I have, I guess, investigated my own belief systems, I realized that everyone was so definitive about their beliefs. They knew that their belief was the ultimate belief. And I will look back and I'm like, how does anybody really come to that conclusion? Is it that there's a group of people that just got the answers and then you were left out trying to figure it out? Like, and this is why I love to have these conversations, because I'm interested when people are so definitive about their belief system. Like, they're like, this is it,
Right.
And going back to the fact that I don't know what belief is occurring because of my experience, and what belief is occurring because it's not been my experience, is the same concept that I copy and paste. Because, like you mentioned here, like, if it's not harming anyone,
Right.
I don't know what to do with it. Like, I don't know why it's so important for us to dominate the next person's experience to make ours better when there's so many different experiences happening.
Right.
Like, how do we know that they're human? They came here, like, you the only person in your group are the only person that got the secret sauce. Like,
Right.
where did we go get the secret sauce so we all know we're
Where do we go
believers?
get the secret sauce?
Like, that's what it feels like when people are going back and forth. And to your thesis, there's no point of arguing God. I've heard that concept, not that line, but the fact that there's so many different gods because everyone's relationship is different, even in that same organization and that same theology or doctrine. People are all thinking of God way differently.
Right.
Even if sometimes they're agreeing with each other, they still are looking. And and I find it interesting because I'll go to church and I'll be in the church pews or whatever. I don't think they're called pews anymore. I think I haven't seen a pew in a long time. But in the seats. And like, I'm somebody who's looking at God completely different than everyone in there. I literally am like, I love the show. Like, I used to be upset about the show. that when you go to church, there was like theater. I'm like, I need some real
Right.
teaching, because I was
Right.
really passionate about, like, somebody teach me for real. I don't want no show.
Right.
Now I'm like, oh, it's a wonderful show. It's another
Right.
way that I cleanse, because there are a lot of great teachings that come out of it, depending on what organization or doctrine, I forget what they're called, the denomination you're in. Some are very fear based, and some are just like, well, and I'll go a la land.
Right.
Because I enjoy it, and I'm still learning. I don't know. I would be lying to myself if I said I know exactly anything other than there's power in the name of Jesus, and that's just because of my experience.
Right. Right.
I had a game prepared for us. I'm not sure how much time you had, and a few other like closing out questions.
I got time.
You mentioned good and evil slightly through our conversation. Do you have your own definition or understanding of what is good?
So
Or
I believe good and evil in a moral sense is always going to be connected to your purpose. So, for example, if I create a phone, right, I got my smartphone right here. If it doesn't matter if it can go on the internet, if it can, text, if it could do all these things, if it can't call anybody, people are going to say that's a bad phone. Because by the end of the day, a phone is supposed to call people. If I had a toy that is made to do backflips, it doesn't matter if it, can, do a split. The toy can't do a backflip, then the toy's a bad toy, and so that to say that humans do have a purpose. And I think it actually goes back to the Garden of Eden. I think stories like the Garden of Eden, I think stories like in the Greece mythology about the Golden Age, and in the Hopi prophecies, they all speak of a time where humans were doing X, Y, Z, living in harmony, all these things. And then humans, start doing bad. I think all of that is grounded around purpose, right? And so if you're created to do a specific thing, and then you go off course and do something else, then you're bad. And so if bees today just decided we're not going to pollinate anything, we're going to go and make a bunch of mud huts by ponds, that would be bad. It'd be bad for the bees. It'd be bad for us, because they have a purpose, they have a function. And if they defy that function, bad things happen because things work in accordance. Humans have been way off course, and we see the result to the earth. We see the result to humanity, to our bodies, to our minds. And so, yeah, I think that good and evil in that sense. And then there's the other good and evil that most people are talking about, which I just call, I don't think these are good or evil, is order and entropy. I think certain things work towards complexity and order and structure, and certain things work towards destruction and dissolution. Though I don't think that entropy is bad in itself. Like morally, I do think that normally, when you're doing something bad, you're normally working towards entropy. And then I do think that we are beings of order, so we should be going toward order and structure. But I don't think that order and entropy are good and evil in themselves, in the way that doing something against the intent of your creator or what you were created for is bad.
I mean, you have it when you started with the cell phone. I felt it all the way through the end. That is a really, really good. It kind of goes back to when you were talking about being able to identify your purpose at such a young age. And I don't know, walking into that, you may have already said this earlier, but for the purpose of this section, how do you illustrate or communicate your work? Like, what exactly is your purpose in a few words?
My purpose is simply to use the philosophy of order to create FAMS, food, forest, foraging, hunting, anti-fragile modern society, which from the perspective of people in Abrahamic religions would be a return back to the garden. From the perspective of, Greek mythology, it'd be a return back to the golden age. From the perspective of an anthropologist, it'd be a return back to pre-civilization. But keep in mind that civilization is not synonymous with technology. So I'm not anti-technology. I know people confuse that a lot. But an anthropologist would say going back to a time when we were foragers instead of civilized. And so that's my mission. Civilization, is a net evil. Civilization is agreed upon to be two things. It's not society broadly. Civilization is a kind of society that is held up by two pillars: agriculture and centralized government. Agriculture. If you read Genesis, this is all up in, by the way, Genesis is like my favorite book of all time. If you read Genesis, this is all up in there, which is that agriculture curses the soil. It depletes the soil, and therefore it's unsustainable because you got to keep expanding out, destroying trees, destroying lives, going to war with other people for land. And centralized government, which is also touched on in Genesis, is also very bad for humans because humans are not made to be governed. You're not made for somebody to tell you what to do and to be governed by somebody, by a human being. And, so centralized governments, just as agriculture depletes the soil, the resources, the land, centralized government depletes the freedoms of the people. And we live in that, today. So, those two things together is literally what is the foundation of any civilization. As soon as humans realize that you, like anything else has a purpose, a natural habitat, something that you're supposed to be doing here on Earth, stewards of the Earth, some would call it, the sooner we can go back to, restoring ourselves, restoring humanity, restoring the Earth. And I personally think coming back into some sort of divinity.
Do you believe in love, or like what is love to you?
My 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 third daughter name is Love.
Um,
So I very much believe in love. I think love is one of the strongest spirits in existence. I don't think that you can't get much more powerful than love. You can. There are things that are certainly more powerful than love, but there's not many. Um, I think that humans have a self hatred, and I think when humans fall back in love with themselves, with the planet, the earth they live on, then we'll have a different life. Humans don't really like. I always say there's something called the false mystery. We like to pretend that like it's like it's a mystery. Like, what are humans supposed to do? What are we supposed to be doing? Like, like, are we supposed to be in nature? Like, bro, you know everything is supposed to be in nature. Like, the further that something gets away from nature, the worse things get for it. A lion is not happy in a zoo. People, it's a mystery, man. I don't know. Is it my purpose to work a career until I die? Do you think it's your purpose to work a career until you die? Do you think your natural habitat is an office? Is that what you really believe? Right? The answer is no. So I call it a false mystery, because people, when you really press them on it, they'll give you the answers. But I think that we're afraid of what we truly are, and we've been taught to be afraid of what we truly are, and their fear turns into hatred. But I think when we get back into who humans really are, and we really love ourselves, then I think that a lot of things will naturally follow from that.
how is love illustrated in your life? Is it that you have fallen in love with yourself and you can take us through that journey, or have you seen love manifest, for lack of better words, in any particular way or any entryway where you're like, oh, I understand love because of this?
Yeah, so I've definitely, not in a negative way, but I've fallen out of love with myself. I certainly was in love with myself in college, late high school, very much infatuated with myself as I grew into the person I am today. Now I would say I have more of the love for myself that I would have for my, like, maybe my parents or something. And like, there's not many things that I love more than my mom and my father, right?
Mhm.
You had to go to my kids and stuff, right? And my family, like my core family and things of that nature. So I love myself like I love my father and my mother, but I wouldn't say that I'm in love with my dad. You know, not to pick on my dad. I'm not in love with mom either. I don't know if they ever watched this, but but there's very few things like, I would do anything for my mother and my father. And that same way, I would do anything for myself, and I love myself in that way. But I don't have any sort of infatuation with myself, um, or like some like the type of love, like I'm still in love with my wife, for example. I don't feel that for me. Like
Mm.
I don't got that for me. But I got that super strong love that I have with my wife that I also have with my father and my mother, like that kind of love.
I love that you brought this up. One of the topics that I talk about with all the belief system is that right now there are men and women, and maybe you're not in these pockets of the internet. Maybe this is my algorithm. It seems like it's a war. I feel like it's always been a war, but they're transitioning, or people don't believe in marriage anymore, or like people just kind of want to be independent. Some women are believing that being a wife is embarrassing because of the past. Why do you believe in marriage, and what were you looking for? What was identified for you to feel that in love feeling? Do you know?
So me and my wife were originally like, it's rare. Like we were friends that turned into best friends that like fell in love. So it was like that's not normally what happens with me. Like that's not the normal process. But so that's how that happened for me. It was over time. It wasn't immediate. In fact, she's not anymore, but she was a Muslim, and
Mm.
I didn't want to be with anybody in a religion. I just
Ah.
had gotten out of a religion, so I was like, I'm not going to be with her. Like, it was kind of. So I wasn't looking at all, honestly. It just happened. It just eventually happened, and I really didn't want to because, like, a bunch of guys. Like I never wanted to be another guy. Like if there's when I'm sure maybe like you've had this experience. A bunch of guys around you. There's some guy that might like you, right, Dani? But he doesn't want to pile on to all the guys that are in your face. Like he doesn't want to be. That was me. I'm that guy. I don't want to pile on. I want to be another guy. So but funny enough, it still all happened anyway. And so, that's why I look at it. But in regards to people, though, when it comes to wife and husband and things of that nature, we got to remember a couple of things. There's rarely anything that you believe about marriage today that you weren't taught, So
Mm.
again, you live in a civilization, so you live in a governance. These people govern you. They decide what you believe. They teach you. They socialize you in school. They socialize you with media. They literally go into universities and they fund universities to say things and to teach things. These are not conspiracy theories. They are conspiracies, in my opinion, but these are all facts. Anybody can look at CIA files of them going into universities and trying to teach them not to believe in marriage and things like that. But the concept that we live in of marriage today was created by the Industrial Revolution. So prior to that, there was still marriage. But now you're talking about marriage on our own terms, the way that your own specific culture does it. And so just to briefly go through it, today you're living in a part of the feminist revolution. Just to be clear with everybody, I don't think feminism is evil. I certainly think there are certain things about feminism that are terrible. But feminism as a whole, like if somebody who studies history, is a very positive thing. If you looked at the rights that women had prior to feminism, then you would understand that it is an overall positive thing. But there are some things that should be critiqued, and that is the sexual revolution. So that is what people are experiencing today. It was not handled properly. It demonized motherhood. It made stay at home mothers feel like they were inadequate, that they were less than. It made women feel like you were better off for going out and having as much intercourse as you possibly could before you got married, which ended up in obviously a lot less marriages and harder marriages. So but prior to that, it was the opposite. The Industrial Revolution was pushing marriage. What they wanted was a man to be married to a woman, but they set it up in a sense that they wanted a woman to be a stay-at-home mom. The reason why they pushed that is because they were trying to get men to work in factories. So they created a new social ecosystem where kids go off to school to learn how to work for an industry, women and how to be stay-at-home moms. Women stay at home, watch over the household, and men go out there and they're the product for the factory and they will make the money. And so that was intentional. That didn't just come into being out of nowhere. That's not how we were living prior. Prior to that, you got agriculture and things of that nature. And but humans at their core, marriage is still a big core of human society long before civilization. Humans always cared about love and staying with the person they made a baby with. Yes, you do get things that people don't like to talk about, which is in the Bible. You get monogamy, you get polygyny, you get these different forms, right? But as far as what wasn't, which is big now, there was no shaming a woman for having children, right? There was no shaming people for getting together and being together. That was a good thing. You found somebody you wanted to spend the rest of your life with. You probably knew them since you were a kid in these kind of societies. and y'all stay together, y'all have kids, and you do your best to stay together until the day that you die. And so that part of marriage has always been consistent through time. And so I think women today, when they're thinking about marriage, I don't think that you should go out and just marry just any old body in desperation to find a husband before you get too old. But as I tell my sister, I'll tell all women like I tell my little sister, is that your time is valuable, your time is precious and means something. And if he can't respect that you are on a clock, ladies, if he can't respect that you're on a clock and that you want to get married and that you want to have children, I would say don't waste your time, because there are men out there who are looking for that. Today, the dating market is hard because it's all this like sex, gender war, propaganda, nonsense. But people are out there looking for a good partner to be with. So
And so I guess also speaking to maybe a little brother that you may or may not have, in your experience in love and why you choose it, or in marriage and why you choose it, beyond all of the history of it, like today, have y'all cultivated your own form of marriage that was, I guess, more the root and foundation of it? Or are you still feel that you're like part of civilization, but also owning your own truth and your idea of marriage?
so that goes into like matrices. And so a matrix is comes from the Latin word mater, which means womb. So everything, there's nothing that exists on this planet that doesn't come from a womb, right? Or a medium or structure in which something develops in, right? Is the official like hardcore general definition. And so in saying that, we need to understand that, again, I'm very spiritual, so I always connect things back to the spirit. So you're talking about the spirit of a certain kind of marriage, right? I'm going to use an extreme here. So you have brothers out here today, and I'm not knocking y'all. People feel like that now, feel like I switched up on them. But people, people are like, it's this whole thing happening where brothers are like, I'm going to go and I'm going to do polygamy because our ancestors did it.
Mm.
And I always tell people, but you don't live in the kind of society they live in. You don't have the same social network that they had. You don't even have the same lessons. You don't know anything about a polygamous marriage. So all you're really doing is creating suffering between you and your partner. That doesn't make any sense. You have to be, whatever kind of marriage you decide to be in, you have to be in the matrix or the medium or structure that supports said relationship. One of the issues is today, people want a traditional relationship. And I'm not picking on anybody who has a traditional marriage. I do. But you want to be in a traditional marriage, but you both want to work both want to work jobs. Like, no, you can't have both. You have to be in the matrix that gives birth or sustains that kind of relationship. And so a lot of people today, they want to be in a traditional marriage, but he don't want to pay all the bills, or she wants to work a job too. And so you can't have it both ways. Y'all are going to have to make a decision. So me and my wife, we decided that we wanted to have that more traditional relationship, but it wasn't for that reason. It was because, one, my mother worked very hard through her life. And so I've always said that when I got married, I was going to give my wife a choice whether she wanted to work or she wanted to stay home, just because I know my mom kind of wanted that, but she had to work for us. And so I always said I was going to give that to my wife. My wife comes from a traditional family. So she already had her mind made up that she was going to be a stay-at-home wife. So whether I liked it or not, that was what she had in her mind already. So it just worked out in that way. But in the future, when I am creating these fam societies, right? I'm not going to expect her to stay at home while I work. It's different. But and I feel like I'm ranting here, but I just wanted to tie this up. Is in these other societies that practice both monogamous marriages and polygynous marriages, I used to like watch these societies, and I'm like, why are they always so happy? And I think, but their entire economy is different, right? So like, let's talk about hunter gatherers. Hunter gatherers spend 2 hours in their whole day working. The rest of the day, so they go out. The women gather, the hunters hunt, right? Women stay with most of the kids until the boys get a certain age, and then they go with the men, about around like 12 years old. When they all come back, right? They all got the food. They making the food. They hanging out. They're playing games. They're chilling, right? What does that mean? Well, today in a traditional household, a woman is expected to be by herself, but women weren't made to be that way. Men weren't either. We're made to be in communities. We're made to be in groups. Nobody's made to watch all their kids by themselves. It's ridiculous. You're normally in history, you would have your sisters with you, your friends, your mother, your aunt, your grandma. Everybody's watching the kids. Men weren't expected to go out and provide solo dolo. That's ridiculous. That's so much pressure. You and your father, your brother, your friends, your cousins, y'all went out together. Y'all did, and y'all brought it back in. Nobody was meant to spend time alone. Y'all came back together as a family. And so all these things that we do for fun, cookouts, hunting trips, fishing trips, walking, taking long walks. These are things that we naturally did I call this when we were in line with the laws that God intended for us. So all these were together. So, but until I get to that place where we have that community, where we can do these things, where we create these societies, I can't. If I try to live it in that way now, it would just collapse on itself. So right now we do live in a traditional marriage.
It's so interesting that you brought that up because I used to be in an extreme religious organization and there was a lot of community there. But what I realized is that it was a lot of children coming through there, but we were together. When we were together, it didn't feel like you had this burden.
Yeah.
It was almost like, because it was a point where like women would get together and all the children would come to one of the ladies' houses and everybody's just like chatting and talking, but it felt so much better than you just being by yourself with the children while your husband is gone. Like
100%.
it, and I just remember that relief of just having someone else with you was really all you needed. And it's like now it's so independent that one, you don't want to bother anyone else. And two, it's like if you're going through something, you don't want other people to know that you're going through something because everybody else seems like they got it all together. And it's interesting how the psyche works because we're all believing that. And the other thing that you brought out was just like your belief about marriage coming from, I imagine, your upbringing, and you speak so highly of your parents. Did you see like what stories come, or a story, probably can't even give a whole stories, but is there a story that comes out of your upbringing when it relates to your mother and your father that inspires you in who you are today, or maybe as a husband or as a father or just a guy? Like what story stands out when it comes to how you recognize your mom and dad?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I'll give my mother to my father. For my mother, it's just the fact it's kind of like an everyday thing. My mother was always that person in the community. Like I'll just give one example because there's so many. She created this organization called Perkett Panthers. Now I'm from New Jersey, and there's if anybody's familiar, this place called Camden, New Jersey. At the time, Camden, New Jersey was said to be like Iraq. Like it was like it had more killings. It was really bad. And but my mom was in that community, and she took these girls. They didn't have any programs. She took these girls, I mean, a lot of them, and she taught them cheerleading, but she took them to competitive cheerleading. So she started taking these girls to Disney. They were on the news. They were traveling the world, competing, and she changed all their lives. She made them want to do more, go places, see things. And just seeing that as a norm for me in my life, see somebody making just like such a difference in their community, even though they didn't always treat her kindly. When you're running something, people are going through things, and I mean, when you're in a state of poverty, you can be pretty mean, and you're not thinking clearly. But those moments existed too, and I also always respected the fact that my mother, when it came to my spiritual experiences, she never made me feel crazy. The worst thing that you can do is make somebody feel crazy. I always say that's what drives people crazy. Is people making you feel crazy. And so everybody said, him seeing things again, she'd be like, "Don't do that." She's like, "No, if you saw it, you saw it. I believe you. You saw something." And and she was like, "You can see things. That's okay. You're able to see things that people can't see." So she made me not feel like I was insane. And so, yeah, so I go on and on. My mother and also my father, for him, it was more of this like, my father provided this space where I could talk to him about like really deep things, these kind of conversations, like, like deep convos. That's number one. Like, I could talk to him about politics, religion, philosophy, no judgment. We would just go on, and I could ask him all these questions. My dad was like, kind of like this wise, like, for me as a kid, like this wise man, just like giving his lessons, like, like even more. I'm gonna give you a funny lesson, but that's the way that my dad was. He was like, hey man, you don't go sleeping with another man's, woman. I'm like, mind you, I'm like freaking 14, 15. I don't know. I don't know nothing about this. You don't go see with it. And I'm like, okay, well, like, why? He's like, with men that kill you for something. You might think something light to kill you for. He said, look, I'm gonna give you the signs when you walk in the house. You look to the left, you need to check the shoes. You look over there, check the closet. If you see a coat that looks big, you see shoes that look big, you need to get out. Right. So that's how he was. But he also taught deep things about family. Like, he changed my entire perspective on like elders. Like, my dad told me, he said, look, when people get a certain age, you gotta make one or two decisions. You gotta stop being around them. You gotta just accept them for who they are and let it just roll right off of you. He's like, sometimes in our old age, 80, 85, they don't feel like being polite. They're gonna be mean or whatever. And so, and then, my dad was just that type of guy. He's going to teach you just lessons. Like, he drove me around the hood one time. He showed me like drug dealers, prostitutes. Like, he was just that kind of dad that was going to make sure his son got this wisdom. But, more importantly, from my perspective, when it comes to my parents, was that I got to see what happened to a lot of my friends who didn't have that. And I didn't even realize it was a big deal until I was much older, like, not much older, but like 19, 20. And I'm looking at my friends and how their lives are turning out, how my friends actually saw my parents as their parents because their parents weren't really there. So my mom was their mom, my dad was their dad. And, so yeah, I look at those kind of experiences, where, like I said, with my mom, she kind of led as an example as far as like what a leader does in the community. And my dad kind of led as like how a man behaves, how a man handles wisdom and things of that nature. So that's how they impacted me. I mean, like I said, I can go on and on and on, but those are really how they impacted me growing up.
All right, we're almost close to the end. I just want to play this game before we leave.
Okay.
So your name, Eloheem.
Right.
You're going to pick one letter out of your name, and behind the letter is one of the pieces of content that you have on your page, but it's just a quote. And I'll stop there. Just pick one letter out of your name.
I'm going E.
E. The first E? The second or the third?
That's
okay,
a
the
good
first
question.
E.
Let's go to first.
Okay, the first E. Okay, now the Ali part. It's a 1 minute timer, 2 minute timer, and 3 minute timer behind one of the letters. Just pick one of them. A, L, or I.
L.
Oh, okay. All right. So, just for the sake of time, I'm hoping you remember this video. But if you need me to play it, I will. I have a quote from a video of yours, and we're just going to go deeper into it. And you picked L, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have 1 minute on the clock to go through this improv experience. In the chat, I just want you to go ahead and read this quote from you aloud.
Don't start the timer. I can't.
Okay,
okay, there we go. I can see it. St. Nicholas was a real man, but the man was only the vessel. When the man died, the pattern did not vanish. Okay, let me unpack this.
All right, not yet. All right, so this is a timer. The goal is you keep talking until it gets to the very end, which is the logo. That's how you know your time is up. Okay. This one is 1 minute, okay?
All right, let's do it.
All right, so you're responding to this quote any way you want to, improv-ing.
Okay.
All right, ready? 1 minute on the clock, go.
All right, so so first of all, we had to understand what a spirit is. A spirit is a collection of attributes that make something what it is. and like the spirit of river, the spirit of a school. And then we have to understand that everything has a matrix, a medium or structure in which it develops in. So a spirit can manifest anywhere where that matrix is. So St. Nicholas is a real person, okay? But he was a manifestation of a certain spirit, let's say the Santa Claus, the given spirit. So he obviously grew up, he gave, he did his thing, but when he died, though his body was gone, his spirit didn't go with it. So his spirit survived and amplified larger and larger and larger, and it became its own phenomenon itself where people literally treat that spirit as a god, where they give offerings like cookies at night, and they pray by making these lists and this wish list for Santa Claus. I'm not judging any of you. And they sing songs and praise about him all winter. So
All right.
that's my explanation.
Well, why do you think that pattern existed and not others? Like, why particularly that one?
So I think that that pattern of Santa Claus is actually a pattern that existed prior to Saint Nicholas. And so I think it's just the spirit of the masculine giving. So you know, if a spirit's a collection of attributes, that means that around the world you're going to eventually get the highest manifestation of that spirit. And so that was Saint Nicholas in his specific town. So as that spirit was growing, right, or that pattern was growing, there were other patterns around the world who were also the spirit of giving. But for whatever reason, I would say because it resonated more with people. But for whatever reason, that particular spirit from Turkey of giving amplified above all
Mm,
the other cultural ones and became the one that survived and actually absorbed the other ones into itself.
that makes sense. Okay, we've made it. I would love for you to share one who your audience is, how they can connect with you. When I say who your audience is, just describe. Is it someone who's on a spiritual journey and they want to learn about these things? Who's your audience and how do they connect with you?
Okay, so knowing my audience is some of these four people I've noticed. Obviously, people who are really into philosophical material, metaphysics, things of that nature. Um, Christians. Now, this one I am going to always say I am not a Christian. And I always got to say this to my Christian followers because, you guys read my stuff and you come across something that upsets you. You have to remember that I'm not a Christian. Okay. So just keep that in mind as you're going through my content. But yeah, I do attract a lot of Christians and I love y'all. Uh, Also, people who are coming out of Christianity or out of religion, they tend to really, like my work. And last but not least, there was a last group of people. There are people who are just into spirituality and conspiracy theories and things of that nature. I just want to warn all of you that I do not believe the earth is flat. So there's certain things for people to know before you engage in my content because I get these messages. You can find me at www.thephilosophyoforder.com or school.com/thephilosophyoforder. You put a philosophy of order anywhere, I'll pop up. You put Eloheem Ali as spelled right here, anywhere, ELOHEEM space ALI. I will also pop up. We recently just opened up the Philosophy of Order Studios where all of my audiobooks are there. 7-day free trial, so you can listen to them for free if you want. And it's only $25 a month. There's a book club there. Also, we've taken in all of the new students for this month. So not next month, but the month in April, we'll be taking on a new cohort of students for those out there who have been looking to join in. And this time I'll take more people. So I guess those are all the things.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your time with me today and going through all of these
It was awesome.
shenanigans. I have one last assignment. I'm thinking about this book. Is I'm trying to make it a virtual thing where the book doesn't exist. It's existing through our comments and our feedback. But the title of the book is The Making of a Human, and the question that we're trying to answer is what makes a human. And the way you can respond to this is: do you think there's a story that you would want in a book? Is there a concept that you would want to see in this book? Is there a chapter that the book should go through? When you think of what makes a human, what would you want to see in that book?
Chapter 1, Stewards of Earth. And then the chapter should be about how humans are ecosystem engineers. For those who don't know what those are animals, organisms in the world that literally create ecosystems. So if you remove them, then you destroy the entire ecosystem. And so I believe, well, not believe, I know that humans went around planting food forests around the world. A lot of the forests that y'all are used to, that you take for granted, the Amazon rainforest, the one that we know today was created by ancient hunter gatherers. So we literally used to go around create a bunch of Garden of Edens around the world. Anybody can look this up. This is a fact. And so that would be the first chapter I start with. The stewards of the earth. Humans are ecosystem engineers. I would start with that chapter.
Why?
Because I'm big on purpose, and I think once humans get back to their purpose and get back to doing the things that we naturally do, I think that is going to lead to a lot of fulfillment, not just to humanity but for the earth. I actually believe personally that humans are the number one protectors of the earth. I think that humans are the number one stewards of the earth, and if we're not doing our job, then you can say goodbye to all this. You're going to see another mass extinction, unfortunately. So I think that humans are very important. Most people who are outside of religion, they be like, humans over inflate their importance to the earth. You're not that important. On the contrary, you are very important. And if you look back to when a lot of these, like the Sahara Desert started with agriculture. Go back and look at when agriculture started and go look at the Sahara Desert when it started. Prior to that, the Sahara Desert was a luscious forest. And humans go around planting forests, so you can do the math. And until agriculture, then we stopped. So, and just real quick, because I know it's the end, Dani, because I think do you have Christian watchers and people who read the Bible, right? I'm assuming you do.
Yeah. I'm hoping it's a mixed bag of all of them.
Okay.
But mostly Christians.
Those who are into the Bible, go read Genesis. Genesis literally tells you, and people think it's hyperbole, Adam and Eve are hunter-gatherers. Okay? The Garden of Eden is the state that humanity existed in as hunter-gatherers, right? Where they eat from trees, they live one with nature, they're naked. The tree of good and evil, right? If you want to know what that knowledge of good and evil was, go and read all of the curses and consequences from eating that fruit, like having to till the land, farm, eat food that comes from the ground instead of from the trees, till. I mean, I'm not going to go into the whole thing. Cain and Abel. One is an agriculturalist crop grower who eventually builds the first city, Cain. The other one is a herder, hunter-gatherer. Just say I'm not going to go into all of it right now. But when you feel like going into that, I implore y'all to go into it because it talks about a lot of that stewardship that we're supposed to have with our planet.
Man, I gotta train myself because I'm such a talker. And you just brought up Genesis earlier. You were like, Genesis is my favorite book, and you're like, I'm not Christian, so like now, like,
bring me back, Dani.
You gotta come back, please. Will you please do me the honors of coming back because there's so much that we did not get to talk about, and I'm like, it's already over an hour. Whenever you're open, whenever you can, I would love for you to go back. But I really want this to be intentional. Like, we're gonna go deeper,
Okay.
especially with that Genesis and stuff like that, and anything that you might think of. But that would be so fun.
Yeah, let's do it. I would love. I thoroughly enjoyed this, Dani. I want to ask you a question before you go.
Yeah.
Okay, so where are you from? What brand of Christianity were you in, and what do you believe now?
Ooh, no one has ever asked me a question. Okay, like that. I'm from Maryland.
I knew you was yo. I knew you were. I lived in Maryland. I was teaching in D.C. at Statesman Academy, and my wife is from Waldorf, Maryland.
Oh, is she?
I knew you were from Maryland, but go ahead.
How did you know it? Did I say the number 2 different or something?
I just know. What part of Maryland from? You from Baltimore or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, I just been in that area. I used to hang around people from Bowie. I lived out in the DMV. I'm like, yo, she reminds me of somebody from Maryland. And so that's where it started in my brain. But go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So, what's so funny is that once I started to go on this journey, it was because I was so interested in God and I wanted all the answers. I wanted a list. I imagine that I grew up in something I don't even know what to call it. because I thought it was all the same. I learned later on that there were like different denominations. Like maybe I was Baptist, maybe I was non-denomination. I really don't know. Honestly, I probably have to go back to the churches and figure that out. I remember I had like cousins that were had a stricter rules, and they were cousins through marriage where they had to wear like long dresses, they couldn't like watch certain TV shows, and I was like, I just wasn't that strict. I was watching Martin late at night and Def Comedy Jam. I didn't have those type of rules, but I did. I mean, but I had to go to church every Sunday. Like it was really important. If I had a sleepover, all y'all go to church, with us. So I don't know. I don't know what I grew up in, to be honest. I thought it was all the same. Once I realized there was so many different ones, I was like, "What? How do y'all keep up with this? Like, why?"
Right. Same here.
And because I wanted to know so much, I ended up in an extreme religious organization. And because people follow it, I try to be careful with that because I understand that it's just not for me. But it taught me so much about, I guess, even being like, which I almost forgot. The video that I reached out to you on is based off of this because you were talking about people being brown.
But the race spell.
Yeah. We were supposed to go through that, but next time. The idea of being Black, that wasn't really something that was emphasized, me growing up. And that was probably a superpower because I never thought I was less than any other person.
Right.
But I realized, like, okay, maybe I'm different. In this organization, it was real, like, Black power, and we had chosen people. And so I learned a lot there.
Israelite? No? Oh,
yeah. I guess that's easy.
You didn't want to say it. My bad.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Sometimes I say I don't want to say it. I end up saying it, but because people look at it differently. And I just tagged it as an extreme religious organization for the ones that I was a part of. And I think there's like multiple ones. When I came out of there, the way I came out of it was a little bit extreme. And it was extreme because it was like the understanding of God was ripped from me. Like I didn't believe in God at all anymore, where I was like, so like, fine, God, I need the rules. I'm making sure I got to heaven. And then when the way I left this organization, it was like, this cannot be God. And I thought this was the truth because I navigated from like how I was raised. And like, I guess I used to call it a regular church. In the book I wrote, I call it the regular church with quotations to this. What they call it was the truth. And it felt like the truth because during the experience of getting there, I had these questions at church. As soon as I went to this organization, they answered it in my first interactions with them. Right. And I thought that was like magical and divine, which everything in my life feels that way now. Like I couldn't tell the difference. But I was like, oh my goodness, this is the truth. And I did learn a lot of things. Some things I still kept with me. Some of it I threw it away. But I remember throwing away the Bible when I came out of there because I couldn't believe that God would take me on this journey where I thought this was the truth, and then it would reveal itself to be so horrible, for lack of better words. Like, and that was just my experience. I was just like, this is wild. I can't believe. And then when I got out of it, I learned all this stuff that was going on there. I couldn't even believe.
I have to ask, what was it that made you go like, this is horrible?
It's a collection of things, actually. And I think I just got to this horrible feeling. It was very short-lived because, again, I trained my mind to think on the good. So it was very short-lived, and it was like, then it became a joke. Like, oh, I was in a cult. I came out calling it a cult. And I just remember calling my cousin. I was just like, yeah, I'm out the cult. Like, it's no big deal. I was in the cult. But to them, it was just like, we were praying for you.
Yo, you are hilarious.
I can't believe it.
That is so funny. Yeah, I'm out of a call. No big deal. I just got out.
It was just a part of the life experience. This is my contribution to like figure out who I was. Which when you were talking about when you were younger, I feel like I can understand what you were talking about because I remember almost kind of giving myself this experience and knowing that it was going to happen, but I just I couldn't put a face to it. Afterwards, I'm like, I wanted something because I always felt like I didn't have the type of like street cred and character because I felt like I was so protected and loved. I had friends and stuff like that. Like, I was my own personality and quirky, but I feel like the real cool people, they were struggling, like they're, something was going on in their family. I was like, I need some character. I need like, but it was all subconscious, like in my head. I never really said, hey, I gotta sign up for character. I just was observing life. I'm like, oh, you need to have it real hard. And I think this is how I kind of like manifest this experience and then got out of it. But What do I believe now? I believe that I don't know anything.
Okay.
I believe that I'm always evolving and there's always something that I can know, and that I'm always going to focus on the good no matter what, or try my best, because it just serves me more than the opposite. I have investigated different feelings and belief systems that I didn't understand, like depression. I remember being so rose-colored glass or whatever, how people might have described me, and not really understanding how anybody could reach depression, and then manifesting an experience so I could feel it, and then realizing I still don't understand because I felt it and I was climbing my way out of it, you know. And I just knew that just wasn't a place that I felt most comfortable with. It now that I understand it, I can now empathize and with people. But it's like, even when I had that case, it seems like, oh, now I understand it, I should just stay here with everybody else, like, oh, the world, I was like, no, I don't want to, I don't like it here. So I know that that's probably part of my belief system. It's like, believe in the good, try your best, and be authentic, and ask questions as a part of the framework that I'm curating, because I still have moments where I'm like, y'all can't tell me there's not no power in the name of Jesus, but then I can, overthink that, and like, maybe Jesus is just something in my mind, because I'm thinking. But I believe in trying your best. I believe in learning and asking questions and being authentic with what you find, which is why I am so passionate about when I can sit with something like, oh, I believe the power in the name of Jesus. I just say, I truly know I believe that. I'm not making it up. I'm not being influenced by my upbringing. I'm not feared into it. I just believe it because I'm being sincere and honest with that. And that's what I keep trying to get to, over and over again. That was a long answer. I don't know if any of it made sense, but
no, all of it made sense. It was a great answer. I learned a lot.
Good. Well, I can't wait for us to schedule the next one. We got a lot of homework to do because I'm about to send you some stuff that I want you to go deeper in. But thank you so much for sharing your time with me today.
Thanks for having me. I felt good. It was a great conversation.
All right, everyone listening, we at the end for real this time. I know I probably end like 5 times. Until next time, hold on to you as much as you can. Hold on to your health, your being, and your mind. Be mindful. Bye.
Breathe.